सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
The topic for this morning is, and actually that's the topic for, in all the sessions that I'm going to participate in. The essence and the focus of it is honoring and healing our ancestors. But this morning I'm going to elaborate on the title of this presentation, which is Shakti, Yajna, Shraddham. Shakti, Yajna, Shraddham. Okay, a loose translation, because more often than not, it's very difficult to give an accurate translation of some of the terms in Sanskrit. So I can offer a loose translation, and this morning we're going to unpack the relevance of these three words in our everyday life, and also bringing in the ancestral heritage that each of us receive. So Shakti is Shakti Kumbh, Shakti. Shakti is power. Shakti for me is also the manifestation of the feminine in its fullness, the goddess energy in its fullness. So Shakti is that's the loose translation. Yajna is a process of engaging, a process of allowing the fires of life, nurturing the fires of life, and offering oneself and one's endeavors in life into this fire. That is Yajna. And Shraddham is the name given to the rituals and the processes that one engages in. In this part of the world, we call it Shraddham, which is about healing and honoring our ancestors. So first, let's start off by acknowledging that not necessarily based on gender, but definitely advantage because of the gender, we have greater access to this power of healing. And what is the power of healing? Healing is really making this journey between our human consciousness towards our divine consciousness. The process that we go through while we make this journey is healing. Healing is not fixing. Healing is not correcting at a behavior level. Healing is not going out there and doing something there so that some things start to work better. Healing is going within and making this journey between my identity as a human being and seeking out to reclaim, because it's always there, it's never gone away, but we don't even know, most of us don't even know it exists. So starting with myself as a human, with my human identity, and go on this journey to reclaim my divine identity, my divine consciousness. This journey of going within happens in the presence and with the support of the divine. Let me inform you that a lot of what I'm sharing are my thoughts and my opinions, and I'm not, whatever texts I have read, whatever inputs I've had in my life, it has been processed through my consciousness, and so therefore what I share has my flavor to it. And so I just claim all opinions as entirely mine. I'm not referring to any texts when I'm speaking today. So in my opinion, in my understanding, Shakti, the presence of Shakti, is inherent in any kind of healing process. Because any kind of healing process requires the energy and the capability to be a holder of what is not yet healed, holder of what is not yet whole, and create a space for that kind of a process, hold it, allow the process to complete, and then release, like I said, a transformed version of what came in, while the self is not being lessened in any way. So in holding the space, I am not losing or becoming less in any way, but I build the strength to hold a space for whatever needs to come in and to be processed. For me, that is my interpretation of the presence of Shakti, which is the divine goddess energy. So before we go any further, let me just bring it into the context of ancestral work and say, interestingly, while the patriarchal system that has existed globally for millennia, suggests that, at least in our tradition in the past, it has suggested that men are the ones who are legitimately allowed to do these processes of healing and releasing ancestral energies. I just realized, wow, I've been doing Shradham day by day after day for so many families. And it's so interesting that actually I see that as a work of Shakti, the divine goddess, who has the capacity to create that space, hold that space, allow the process, and then release those energies in a transformed manner. So I think in this gathering today, I personally, for myself, and hopefully maybe some of you can relate to what I'm saying, I want to lay claim to this process of healing as the work of the divine feminine. It might manifest through a man. I'm not talking in genders here. I'm talking about the quality of energy. I want to claim that this is a process that is enabled by the divine feminine, and say all kinds of ancestral work and all kinds of actually healing work is the act of the divine feminine. And any of you here who are already engaged in any form of healing, any form of enabling, any form of holding space for someone else's process to unfold, I would see all of those instances, all of those times, as you being in touch with the divine feminine. And so it's very helpful, once we know it, to consciously invoke the divine feminine before we begin the process. Okay? I would like to ask Anita to chant the Devi Suktam. Devi Suktam, again, is a very traditional Indian chant which particularly invokes the divine feminine, the goddess energy. And I would like you to experience it. Please connect in whatever form you relate to the idea of the divine feminine, the goddess energy, and take for yourself the energy of that presence as she descends into the space. I would invite you to trust, to believe, and believe that as we invoke, she actually descends in her fullness in this space. Okay?
ॐ अहं रुद्रेभिर्वसुभिश्चरां यहमादित्यैरुतविश्वदेवैः अहं मित्रावरुणो भा बिभर्म्यहमिन्द्राग्नी अहमश्विनो भा अहं सोममाहनसं बिभर्म्यहन् त्वष्टारमुतपूषणं भगम् अहं दधामि द्रविणं हविष्मते सुप्राव्ये यजमानाय सुन्वते अहं राष्ट्री सङ्गमनी वसूनां चिकितुषी प्रथमा यज्ञियानां तां मा देवा व्यदधुः पुरुत्रा भूरिस्थात्रां भूर्या वेशयन्तीं मया सोऽन्नमत्तियो विपश्यति यः प्राणिति य ईशृणोत्युक्तम् अमन्तवो मान्त उपक्षियन्ति श्रुधि श्रुतः श्रद्धिवन् ते वदामि अहमेव स्वयमिदं वदामि जुष्टं देवेभिरुत मानुषेभिः यं कामयेतन्तमुग्रं कृणोमि तं ब्रह्माणन्तमृषिन् तं सुमेधाम् अहं रुद्राय धनुरातनोमि ब्रह्मद्विषे शरवे हन्तवा ऊ अहञ्जनाय समदं कृणोम्यहं द्यावा पृथिवी आविवेश अहं सुवे पितरमस्य मूर्धन्मम योनिरप्स्व अन्तः समुद्रे ततो वितिष्ठे भुवनानुविश्वो तामून्द्यां वर्ष्मणोपस्पृशामि अहमेव वात इव प्रवाम्यारभमाणा भुवनानि विश्वा परो दिवा पर एना पृथिव्यै तावती महिना सम्बभूव ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
So now that we have the goddess with us, it is safe for us to get deeper into this process. She will hold the space for all of us as we engage. Transgenerational healing is a healing process. And as I said, healing means uncovering all those parts of us, uncovering all those residues, uncovering and releasing all those residues from our accumulated experiences through life, so that the divine that is already inherent, that is inherent in each one of us, that is already present in each of us, as we let go of the grossness of our own being, as we let go of the grossness of our energies, that the light within starts to come through. There is no effort needed to bring the light in. Whatever the human effort is, the effort is towards removing the grossness that keeps the light out of sight and out of reach. Every one of us is a unit, an expression of consciousness, and that consciousness is embedded in us already. So our process is one of dissolving the grossness that has kept this light, this consciousness, inaccessible to us and therefore to everyone around us, to the world. Now, a big part of that process of releasing, dissolving, that material that we endeavor to receive and dissolve, the common reference to that material is karma. Karma. And I will unpack that. I will unpack the word karma, the way I understand it, and why that is a yajnam that we are engaging with. A yajnam is a sacrifice. So typically, I don't know how familiar you are with these words, so I might be saying something to you which you already are aware of. So please bear with me. A yajnam is typically done around, we invoke a sacrifice, a fire, and we are offering into the fire all that needs to be offered into the fire, and there is an expectation of something that will reach us through this process. Basically, it is the essence of it is, as we shed what needs to be shed, we gain access to the light. Now, the word yajna therefore indicates an active process. Okay? What is the active process? The very basic level of active process of life is the act of breathing. The most fundamental process of living is the act of breathing, the flow of prana, and we are actively participating in that process through this form, through this body. So every inhale and exhale at the most fundamental level is an yajna by itself. Okay? What is the yajna? That consciousness, that universal consciousness, which is choosing to engage in this dimension of experience, this dimension of experience that we call being human. In our context, there are so many other life forms, of course, but in this context, that universal consciousness that wishes to engage in this dimension of experience has arrived into this world through this form, and the aliveness of that process of engaging with this world is symbolized through the act of breathing. Because life is acknowledged the moment the breath starts to flow, and is acknowledged to have ceased when the breath stops. So that is the most fundamental way that we are engaging with life. Now, the moment we have arrived and this engagement begins, we are impacted. We become the interface between that universal mind, this universal consciousness, and what this dimension has to offer. We are the interface. So we receive the impact of life. And it is processed by our being. And then a response is evoked in us, which we offer back to this world. Now that is the process, basic process that we all recognize. So we receive the impact of this world, we process it in this organism processes it, and then it offers it back to the world. There are times when we are able to do it mindfully. We are aware that this is the process. we are aware of the impact of the world on us. I'm aware of the impact of this gathering and what is this doing to me. I'm aware of it. I receive that impact. I'm present to the impact. And then something is evoked in me in response to the impact. However, there are several times when this is not happening with our full presence. In fact, majority of the time, I would say, until we have learned and trained ourselves to be more present. Majority of the time, we are not aware. It doesn't. I do not register what it did to me when I crossed somebody at the corridor and that person looked at me and smiled. I'm not present to that. I'm so caught up in whatever I'm busy with in my mind, and I walk past. I may mechanically smile back, but I just walk past. I'm not present to that impact. What it might do to me, however, is because you smiled at me, when I look at the next person, I feel like smiling. Maybe that has passed through me unconsciously. And there is an energy transfer that has happened in that process. Now, there is, therefore, what I'm trying to establish here is impact is inevitable. Small, big, huge, tiny, little, insignificant, it does not matter. Impact is inevitable. And every impact has, every encounter has an impact that is measured through an energy vibration. Because essentially, we are energy beings. Do we share that idea? Is that comfortable to assume that all of us understand that? Yes. So essentially, we are energy beings, and therefore, every encounter with life generates a certain quality of vibration that goes through our being. Some of it is noticed by us, and some of it we do not notice. As a result of which, while we may respond to that encounter and release the impact that was generated by that encounter, there are several times, more often than not, where the encounter has happened, the impact has happened, but we have not been able to acknowledge the how we felt, how we thought, what it did to us. We are not able to acknowledge that. We are not present enough to pick that up. And there are other times when, although we are aware, we choose not to express. How many of us are in this gathering can say, I felt a certain way but did not feel comfortable to express how I felt? Have you all had that experience? Yes? Every single time, I mean, every one of us has been in those places where we were not comfortable. We didn't know how to channel that impact and feed it back to wherever it belonged. What is the result of that? That vibration that was set into motion stayed in my energy field. Yeah. So more often than not, again, it's usually this happens when the encounter has not left a very positive impact, I would say. Positive, negative, using very broadly. I'm not into positive and negative per se, broadly speaking. So when the encounter has not left me feeling good, and I'm not comfortable sharing that with you, then I choose consciously not to share it, and it stays in me. Now, as long as it stays in me, it remains alive. It is not dead. Nothing dies. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. And once I'm holding that energy in me of that experience, it's staying alive in me. So when I'm impacted and there is an energy consequence and I've chosen not to share it, then it remains in me and it stays alive in me. As a result of this, I have now created an energy field, which is the package of all the energies that have not been discharged, that have not been released, and therefore my cumulative frequency of vibration is determined by those energies that have not yet been processed and resolved. So when I have, broadly speaking, a bad experience and it has created either fear, now what would I consider as something that really stays in a way that is toxic for us? Fear, guilt, shame. Anger is actually, in my understanding, secondary. Anger is the outcome of something that I am holding. But what is debilitating and draining my life force energy is fear, guilt, and shame. Grief, again, is an outcome of an experience. And it's not debilitating because shame and guilt, we do not process it sufficiently. The very nature of shame and guilt is we want to create maximum distance from it. And it's silently eating and draining the life force energy that is reaching me through my breath. Every breath, that is the yagam. I'm constantly in the process of keeping this fire alive. And this, my breath is helping me to keep this fire alive. However, a big portion of that energy, life force energy that reaches me, is helping me to avoid looking at fear, shame, and guilt. I'm not taking away what grief can do to us or anger can do to us. And they have a lot of cousins and uncles and aunts who all join the group. But primarily, my experience has taught me to focus on these things as the most debilitating. Right? So when I'm holding on to such, and in the context of what our organism as an energy field, what we end up holding would include also anger and grief, unexpressed anger and grief that doesn't seem to heal, and so on also. As a result, this family that resides in us creates or determines to some extent the quality of energy that I exude, because they have remained in my system, and when I have not yet found a means to resolve and discharge, they are continuously transmitting from my system into the world, and creates a certain quality of energy field around me. Now, as we know about energies and how they behave, the energy dynamics of it, once a strong energy field has been created around me as a result of my own experiences which have not been brought to a closure, now my energy field will allow into my space only those energies which are resonant with my own, because that's the nature of vibration, that's the nature of energy. So when I'm going tapa 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 in my frequency, only thing that will reach me is tapa tapa X times.
But it can fluctuate in the day, or is it
No, we don't need to go into day to day, hour to hour monitoring of it. I'm just explaining to you karma, how I understand it. And the yagam, the yajna, therefore, that we are engaging in. The body is constantly working with these multiple energies, the impact of multiple energies. Our breath brings that life force energy to keep this process going. So we are every day in a state of yagam, yajna, processing, processing, processing. And what are we putting out there? All those energies that we have not found a way to resolve and release, and therefore, unwittingly, constantly located in the place of a victim, because what we are putting out there, only that which is in resonance with it has access to me. Whatever energy I'm putting out there, only experiences that are in resonance with it has access to me, because it's like a strong vibrational field I have created of a certain quality of energy. Now, X times of that itself, or X times of that, is what has access to me. And this is how we create our reality. And this is how we end up, whatever it is that I'm holding as a result of my experiences that have not been resolved and found the resolution and release from within my system, goes into building my energy field. And when I build an energy field, there is no way of tricking this process. And that's what leaves us feeling like a victim. There's no way of tricking it, because if I'm not looking within, and if I'm not processing who I am, where I am, what is going on with me, if I'm not being present, therefore, which is the most fundamental practice, if I'm not fully present with myself and not able to acknowledge and see my own processes and do this yajna on a daily basis of processing and releasing, processing and releasing, uh, by default, I have created a certain quality of energy which will stop at the door anything else. So when I say, as a unit of consciousness, when I say this is the experience I desire, it is in that moment, my belief, my understandings, in that moment, it's at your door. Because I have the power, through the clarity of my intention, to bring into my space whatever it is that is going to add value to me. I have that power. Yet, it does not have access to me, and I don't have access to it, because my energy field is the determining factor. And what is this energy field? You. The energy field is you. Energy field is me.
for some of us that hold space for other people in their processes, I keep hearing many saying, "Oh, I grabbed this that is not mine," and I have always thought, and I just want a confirmation of that, if I'm right or wrong in your opinion, that there is nothing that I grab that is not mine, and if there is a resonance in my body with that energy, then it stays with me. But there is nothing I'm going to grab that is not in accordance to that resonance. So if something is lingering in me, it's because there is a resonance in my body, and I use it actually as a method of going deep within myself so I can work that through.
Yeah. So I am in sync with every syllable that you've uttered. There is absolutely, at this level, I'm not talking about the experiential level. If someone comes and gives me a punch, of course, in that moment, I feel like I'm the victim and somebody has perpetrated that on me. So, of course, at that momentary level, there is the experience of a victim. But in life, one is never a victim. We are a victim as long as we are unaware of the process. So whatever enters my space is something that I have drawn into that space because there is a part of me that is vibrating at that same frequency, and hence it had access to me. We are surrounded by energy. All of existence can be experienced energetically, and hence we are exposed to all kinds of energies. And when I say energies, our thoughts are energies, our emotions are energies, our physical form is energy. So we are exposed to all kinds. And yes, in the passing, we might catch a thought. In the passing, we may catch an emotion because somebody around us or in the space, there is that quality. And if I'm sensitive, in the passing, I might catch it. If it's not mine, it will find its way out. But if it's something that there is a resonance in me, yes, indeed, it will continue to linger, then it is worthy of our attention.
Thank you.
How to release it?
Yajna. Yeah. So it's not these are life processes. There is no quick fix. There is no technique that can be described or understood in a conversation like this. When something is in me and I discover that I'm holding something, how do I release it? I would say for now, the quick answer is that bring your presence to it and observe. The truth of the matter is, since we are inherently divine, there is a part of myself that has the wisdom and the power and the compassion to be a witness to all my human processes. As my human self, I have only come down with a certain set of um, whoever I am, right? But there is that inherent in me, there is that divine self who has the capacity to be a witness to every human process that I'm going through at my human level. So, what we need as a very basic but necessary practice is to stay with that part of me that is not feeling right. And just say, okay, I'm with you. I'm with you. We are in it together. So, yeah, just stay. Yes, we are in this together, and I'm with you. So go ahead, feel what you want, whatever you're feeling. So yeah, so that would be the basic practice. There's lots that we can talk about it about it. That would be more comprehensive. So what is that part of me that is the witness? It's my breath. So that is why breath is an important part of all of these processes. That as I inhale, that divine, we can connect to it as the divine descending into me to bear witness to that part of me that is in pain. So as we focus on the inhale and draw the breath in, we are coming in there with the divine identity to bear witness to the human self going through the process of life. Yeah. Okay, so as I was explaining, this whole energy dynamics that I was talking about in life, and this energy dynamics largely driven by how this organism has received life, processed life, and what has been generated in this organism as a result of that engagement with life, that constitutes my energy field. And karma, in my view, is that which is gaining access to me, entirely dependent on what I have been able to allow in my space. So life comes back to me, not because I deserve to be punished, not because there's somebody out there determining what is my karmic debt and how I need to compensate. There is no external energy, there is no external presence, there is no determining factor other than your own process of life and living. And that comes back to me as karma. Karma, like we have these definitions, none of which is wrong when you say it is it's the consequence of my deeds, it's a consequence of my actions, it's a consequence even at the thought level, and as you sow, so you reap. And so many of these kind of definitions for karma, all of it being right, I would say it goes far deeper than that. It is about who you are and how you're being and how you're engaging with life and how you actively determine the quality of your energy field. That determines what has access to you. There is no one punishing you. There is no form of existence anywhere in the universe, anywhere in existence that wishes to punish you. And this process, so be it at the individual level or coming to the ancestral level, karmic baggage is the energy field that got created in one's own life or at the systemic level, the energy field that plays through us as individuals because we are a part of a system. And what comes back as a consequence of what we have put out there or what we are actually holding inside, which has not got our attention. I want to emphasize this. Don't worry about what you have put there because it's out of your hands, past life, wherever it belongs to, wherever it has gone, it has gone. But how we can take charge of this process and start to benefit from this process, starting from this moment, is being present to what's going on in me. What's going on in me? When I attend this group of this gathering, what is going on in me? If I'm able to keep that kind of a presence, I'm engaging the process in the best way that I'm capable of in this moment. And anyways, we cannot do better than what we are the best that we can do in the moment. This is yajna. The yajna of being alive and engaging with life, with the fire for this engagement being fueled by our breath. Where are you going to go with leaving your breath behind? And as long as you are inhaling, as long as you're breathing, this fire is being kept alive. The fire for engagement. And this fire determines, once you have noticed, once you have seen yourself, and you realize, like Dina said in the previous session, it doesn't matter where it came from. It doesn't matter where it came from. It has got your attention today, and today you realize you're carrying a residue from a previous experience, which is influencing how you now look at life. And this belongs actually to something that might have happened in the past, whether you remember it or not. Offer it to the fire. Because the breath keeps that fire alive. So all we need to do is to connect to the breath and say, I surrender to fate. And fate plays a very big part in the healing process. I surrender to fate. Fate signifies the reasons that might have happened, the events, the situations that I might have experienced in the past, where this anger, where this sorrow, where this guilt, where this fear may have come from. Sometimes I can connect the dots and relate to it. Sometimes I don't even know why it is there. But the moment I notice it, I acknowledge its presence, and I realize that this does not belong to this moment. I'm carrying it from somewhere else. All we need to do is to connect to the breath. The breath is the hotline between my own divine self and this human self who's trying to be successful at life. So the moment I connect to the breath and I hold this intention, I surrender to you my anger, I surrender to you my guilt. This is of course at a simple level, I hope you get that, but this is good enough to start with. I surrender to you, wherever it has come from, it is no longer relevant, it is not serving me anymore. And so I return to you what belongs to you. I return to fate. Fate represents that part of you which you have no access to and you don't need to have access to.
I'd just like to go back to the quantum physics of our energy field. That, as you say, we offer it to yajna at the individual level, and that's how the process works. But because we are all connected to other energy fields, now going to the collective trauma, and we know that now Dina was talking about where science meets spirituality, and we know a lot from Dr. Siegel and others, and psychosomatic field, that we have this interpersonal biology where we get affected by interactions with others. So I just wanted to know if you're going to reflect on that. What do we do even though we connect to our breath? There is so much going on collectively now at the world level that even when we have the breath and the practice, when we are in the world, in the social interactions, there's so much that actually can affect us at
Yeah.
physiological level beyond our conscious control. It happens at the subconscious
I
level.
understand. Yes. Yes. Thank you for the question. See, spaces like this, for example, this summit, and the way that it has come together is an expression or a manifestation of of our collective intent to heal. Okay, and for me, I tend to see everything as a process of healing, because healing, as I said, is not about fixing a problem. Healing is just walking towards our own divine potential, and manifesting that potential on the planet while we are alive through our form. So any convention like this, any summit like this, is a manifestation of that collective intent. But that collective intent, you and I are able to even access that intent, because I would like to believe that some amount of healing has already happened at the individual level. So this bunch of individuals can now relate to an intent like this and bring it into manifestation. So without invalidating or denying what you have presented, that there is so much, and we are all interconnected. There's so much of trauma. Therefore, I'm in touch with the dire urgency of healing. Because at the end of the day, the collective is made up of individuals. So if the bunch of us are able to get a real sense of how can I take charge of my own healing through my healing, because what does healing mean? More of my divine self is starting to show up. I cannot, as the more of my divine self starts to show up, and let us assume that after this conversation, all of us step out of this place with a little more, just a pint, I mean, like whatever the smallest unit may be, that much more of our grossness has dissolved, and we are able to step out. This is the ongoing process that will eventually lead to bigger and bigger manifestations of collective healing. For me, it starts with the individual. And can I take, while I do resonate and I am in touch with the suffering at a collective level, what is my capacity to respond to that? My capacity to respond to that has to begin with building that capacity within me first. And only as I build that capacity within me, like I said, I can become a patram. I can become that space where I can invite energies to heal, because I have built that capacity in me. So that being said, ancestral healing is about healing the collective. So I will elaborate a little more on that. But at the end of the day, it still comes down, it starts, like they often say, charity begins at home. It's a very, you have to start with taking responsibility and checking in with yourself. Am I able to bring that light, awaken that light in me? And am I capable of performing this yajna at the individual level as an ongoing process, so that the best of me emerges through that process? And only when that space is available in me, my vibrational energies will change. See, it's actually in my head, it's very scientific. I cannot go and have a specific impact on the world if I have not created that inside me first, because life works inside out. I don't know if I'm how you're going to receive what I say, but spirituality and people who supposedly follow spiritual practices have the darkest shadows. So it is my individual responsibility, I would say, that I am looking into myself deeply enough, looking into all those parts of me that are not pleasant even, so that I'm not creating that shadow inside me. I'm not leaving room. It's never perfect. It's always work in progress. There's always something that needs to be seen. But I am engaged in that kind of a yajna with myself, so that my inside will be reflected on the outside, and I build the capacity to hold the outside to larger and larger extent.
My question is, do you think, I don't know if it's just my experience, but do you think that shame and guilt are very much connected to that mother woman aspect, and we inherit it through that, and fear more into the masculine?
Yes, because of the nature of our evolution, and we've evolved through the patriarchal system for the most part. Through that system, the women are often put in a place of being apologetic of who they are. Yes. So at a broad level, yes, I do relate to it. But we don't have to crystallize that idea in our mind. It's just something. It's more an observation. So we're going to request Anita to lead us through the next chant, which is called Purusha Suktam. Now, Purusha Suktam is a chant. These chants are Vedic chants, and they have been composed. I mean, composed is the best word that I can come up with. Channeled more than composed, millennia before, and they have stayed alive and they've stayed relevant, and they are a big part of our practices. Not all of us do it, not all of us practice it, but they're very relevant. And every syllable of these chants has an energy component to it. So when you hear each of those syllables, I would invite you to experience it as vibrations that are reaching you as you hear her chant. Because every syllable is there only because the chant is not complete without that syllable. So it's that mindfully and accurately put together. And in this chant in particular, understanding how on a daily basis, on a moment-to-moment basis, we are in a process. Yajna, to put it shortly, is a process. So moment to moment, breath to breath, we are engaged in a process. So as you listen to Anita chanting, just keep your focus on the breath. So every inhale brings life force energy to you. Every exhale has the potential to offload what is no longer required in you. So to very briefly talk about the use of the breath, every inhale brings in unscripted life force energy. So it can work for you in any way that you wish to use that energy. And every exhale has the potential to relieve you of whatever you decide you don't need to carry anymore. So as Anita chants, please engage with it in a very proactive manner in the way that I've suggested.
ॐ संयोरावृणीमहे गातुं यज्ञाय दैवी स्वस्तिर्मानुषेभ्यः ऊर्ध्वं जिगातु भेषजं शन्नो अस्तु द्विपदे शञ्चतुष्पदे ॐ शान्तिः 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 सहस्रशीर्षा पुरुषः सहस्राक्षः सहस्रपात् स भूमिं विश्वतो वृत्वा अत्यतिष्ठद्दशाङ्गुलं पुरुष एवेदगुं सर्वं यद्भूतं यच्च भव्यम् उतामृतत्वस्येशानः यदन्नेनातिरोहति एतावानस्य महिमा अतोऽज्यायागश्च पूरुषः पादोऽस्य विश्वाभूतानि त्रिपादस्यामृतं दिवि त्रिपादोर्ध्व उदैत्पुरुषः पादोऽस्येहा भवात् पुनः ततो विश्वं व्यक्रामत् शासनानशने अभि तस्माद् विराड जायत विराजो अधिपूरुषः स जातो अत्यरिच्यत पश्चाद्भूमिमथो पुरः यत्पुरुषेण हविषा देवा यज्ञमतन्वता वसन्तो अस्यासीदाज्यं ग्रीष्म इद्मः शरद्धविः सप्तास्यासन् परिधयः त्रिसप्तः समिधः कृताः देवा यद्यज्ञं तन्वानाः अबघ्नन् पुरुषं पशुं तं यज्ञं बर्हिषि प्रोक्षन् पुरुषं जातमग्रतः तेन देवा अयजन्ता साध्या ऋषयश्च ये तस्मात् यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः सम्भृतं पृषदाज्यं पशुगस्तागश्चक्रे वायव्यान् आरण्यान् ग्राम्याश्च ये तस्मात् यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः ऋचः सामानि जघ्निरे छन्दागुंसि जघ्निरे तस्मात् यजुस्तस्मादजायत तस्मादश्वा अजायन्त ये केचोभयादतः गावोह जघ्निरे तस्माज्जाता अजावयः यत्पुरुषं व्यदधुः कतिधा व्यकल्पयन् मुखं किमस्य कौ बाहू कावूरूपादा उच्येते ब्राह्मणोऽस्य मुखमासीत् बाहुराजन्यः कृतः ऊरू तदस्य यद्वैश्यः पद्भ्यागुं शूद्रो अजायत चन्द्रमा मनसो जातः चक्षो सूर्यो अजायत मुखादिन्द्रश्चाग्निश्च प्राणाद्वायुरजायत नाभ्या आसीदन्तरिक्षं शीर्ष्णोद्यौ समवर्तत पद्भ्यां भूमिर्दिशश्रोत्रात् तथा लोकागुम् अकल्पयन् तस्य धीरा परिजानन्ति योनिं मरीचीनां पदमिच्छन्ति वेधसः यो देवेभ्य आतपति यो देवानां पुरोहितः पूर्वो यो देवेभ्यो जातः नमो रुचाय ब्राह्मये रुचं ब्राह्मन् जनयन्तः देवा अग्रे तदब्रुवन् यस्त्वैवं ब्राह्मणो विद्यात् तस्य देवा आसन् वशे ह्रीश्च ते लक्ष्मीश्च पत्न्यौ अहोरात्रे पार्श्वे नक्षत्राणि रूपम् अश्विनौ व्यात्तम् इष्टं मनिषाणा अमुं मनिषाणा सर्वं मनिषाणा ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Yes. So we are coming now to the Shraddham component. What does Shraddham mean? Or in effect, what are we doing when we perform Shraddham? Shraddham is the word that that refers to all the rituals that are performed when an individual passes away, passes on. So we have a whole set of rituals which are performed at the death of an individual. And I will share with you what is the intent of those rituals and how, in the contemporary time, I believe we are doing something similar when we do ancestral healing. Right? Now, the grossness of our identity, the physicality of our identity, is so present with us only as long as we are in this human form. It is so engrossing, our physicality gets all of our attention. We are so identified with our physicality as though there is no me once this physicality no longer exists. Whereas the truth about life is, I am essentially an energy being, and physicality is like a blip in the curve of my existence, where I appear in a physical form for a short period of time, and then I move out of that physical form, but I do not stop existing. I continue to live as an energy being. Now, as one of you raised this question, the physicality gives me a sense of boundary. My physical presence gives me a sense of boundary. So one would assume that I know how to keep myself safe. So I will not walk into a moving vehicle because I am aware of the boundary that my skin provides me, and therefore I know how to take care of myself in this physical form. Interestingly, not all of us may know how to hold those boundaries in non-physical ways. Right? We are actually exposed energetically to all kinds of influences, quite like what you raised. And that becomes more evident when we have lost the physical form. Because at least guided by the physical form, we have some sense of boundary, but when we no longer have a physical form to identify with, the boundary becomes that much more vulnerable. So the whole process of enabling the deceased to move safely from this physical world to the other side, to the other world, which one might consider as the true home. One might talk about it as the true home. So all the rituals that we perform is to enable and safeguard the boundaries of the deceased so that they are not compromised on their journey from physicality to their non-physical realm. That is what Shraddham does. So the first step when a person dies is to bring in Shakti. So the moment a person, there are very elaborate rituals, I'm not going to the rituals, we'll just stick with the symbolism of it. The moment a person passes away, here in India and in these cultures, they perform an act of creating a circle around the dead person. And in forming that circle, we are straight away putting a boundary there. And the circle is formed usually using, what is the right equivalent I can use in English? The circle is formed using water and sesame seeds. And a circle is created around the dead person. And that instantly puts the first boundary, saying, sanctified or purified water, something to that effect, immediately saying that nothing should be able, that does not belong here, should be able to get into that circle. So the first act is to make the being safe, the body safe. Because in the moment of death, the person has come out of the body and it has to be made safe. And thereafter, there are several elaborate procedures where all kinds of gods are invoked, all kinds of energies. You're familiar with it. We attribute a form to form of every energy, and we relate to it like that. So all kinds of energy beings, all kinds of godly energies are invoked, and for a whole year, the passage of the departed being across to wherever that it needs to reach is ensured. Safety is ensured through rituals that continue for a whole year. So it's not taken as okay. I mean, of course, you feel sorry, you feel the loss, and you feel the grief, and so on. But our relationship to the soul that has departed does not end with just that. The progeny of the departed soul, typically the children, and in the systemically, it has been the son. I like to claim that I've been doing this now for several years. But so the progeny engage in rituals to ensure the safe departure of the energy field of that person who lived in a body and make sure that they reach the other end safely. Now, in transgenerational healing, so there are elaborate processes that enable that. And the first step, which is the first 10 days immediately after the demise of that individual, the first 10 days is creating a form through a ball of rice. We call that pindam. So we create that form part by part, recreate that form part by part using rice and whatever else. I don't want to go into the details of that ritual, but basically the essence of it is until that form is recreated in full, it is believed that those energies remain in the body. So the process of creating another form part by part spread over 10 days, and that process is about cleansing the body of its energy, of the unresolved issues that the body has died with. So when I die, every part of my body, it is believed, carries the residues of my human life, of this journey. So as a part of the process, part by part, those parts are cleansed systematically. They take 10 days over that process, so that at the end of 10 days, it is believed that the spirit, I'm using the word spirit in this context loosely, the spirit is finally freed from the body. Otherwise, it stays embedded in the form of the body. So when we address it, and in the first step of healing is to enable the spirit to free itself from the entrapment of the physical form and start its journey. And this I'm referencing, I'm talking about my study of the texts and the ancient texts and how they have spoken about it. So the body needs to be freed of this energy. Emotions that we've been talking about, toxic emotions, whatever they may be, have a certain weight to it and does not allow the body to be free of that energy. Shame, fears, specifically fears. When I'm carrying these, it weighs me down, it weighs my spirit down, it keeps me trapped in my physical body. And therefore, that's the ritual that is performed in the first 10 days. And thereafter, this process continues for a whole year until the spirit is believed to be truly free of its humanness and is free to go ahead on its journey and process whatever else needs to be done at that level. The significance of it and why I'm bringing it here is that this is what I believe happens when we do any form of transgenerational work. In transgenerational healing, we use members to open up the constellation for the family, and every member of the family who is represented in that constellation anchors those parts of the departed soul that have not yet been healed and that remain trapped in this system. And when it remains trapped, then it continues to stay alive, and its aliveness manifests through those of us from that family who are actually alive. It's constantly seeking healing. It's seeking to be healed and to be released so that it can go back and integrate with the rest of it wherever it might be. There are times when the whole of the majority of the energy stays in the body, and we do processes to release. That's what we call as energy attachment or spirit attachment. That's a different kind of a process. But in the ancestral healing context, those parts of those ancestors who have not yet been fully released continue to remain in our world energetically. They belong to this world energetically. And those parts, because they are available in our world energetically, they move from one person to the other in the family system all the time seeking healing. So when we set up a constellation and do the process, healing process through the family constellation, we are actually doing Shraddham. And what is the Shraddham? Safe return of that energy field to where it belongs. So when we do the Shraddham in the conventional sense, we call upon father, grandfather, and great grandfather of the person who's doing the Shraddham. Yes, yes. But in the transgenerational context, I'm able to go back 7 generations. This is a traditional practice, and it has been practiced and continues to be practiced by majority of, I would say, the Hindu tradition, because what I'm sharing is from the Hindu tradition. So those who, even amongst the Hindus, it would not be right to say every one of us are still doing it with this kind of, connection. Actually, unfortunately, and that is the consequence of the times that we live in, many of us have lost touch with it. But traditionally, when you go back and you study it, then you understand the significance of it. I was telling my friends that now I'm going to educate my children and say, better do all this for me when I, because the contemporary generation. I mean, the generations now, including myself. Let me be honest. I would not have related to the ritualistic part of it. I didn't have the understanding of why these rituals are important and why they need to be performed. And that's why I said I have to thank the Nilima for it, because it got me to read these scriptures. And once I read the scriptures, I'm able to connect to it at the energetic level and the significance and the relevance of it at the energetic level, because I do understand the language of energy. And when there are parts of me that are weighed down, as much as there are parts of me that are already light and has the capacity to transcend the gravity of this physical world and continue on its journey energetically, there could be parts of me that are carrying still certain heavy energies. I'm moving from the word emotions to energies, because at the end of the day, it translates to a certain quality of energy. So there are parts of me which are still probably holding on to heavy energies, which are not able to work against the gravity of the physical world. Energetically, they are so heavy, they are still trapped here and they are bound here. And this traditional practice of remembering the ancestors and doing a ritual. So those of us who follow it, and those families that follow and follow these traditions, the Shraddh is done every year. Every year, we do our bit to take care of the healing of the ancestors. And that is the healing and honoring practice that has been here and alive through all this millennia. I mean, from the time that we can remember our civilization and as far back as we can go, Shraddh is an integral part of the rituals, which is constantly remembering the ancestors, honoring their journeys, and healing when healing is required.
You said that our energetic bodies are seeking, like
Healing.
the ancestrals, like the seeking feeling,
Seeking
or
healing,
what,
yeah.
whatever that. How does that manifest within your being?
Yeah. So how it manifests? Good question. How it manifests is that you are put in a position. Let us say not. Let us say you are the latest edition of your family. Okay. Or unless you have children, then they are the latest edition of your family system. But let's talk. If I'm talking with you, so you are therefore inheritor of some of the energies that have not been healed, some energies that your ancestors held that were not healed and therefore continue to remain in this world. And once you come into being through your form, potentially you can become a holder of that energy. Because energy in this world means it requires to manifest through form. So, so you can become potentially the holder of that energy, then it starts to manifest in your life. Those parts that are not healed will show up in your life, and that's how you seek healing. You don't necessarily know that this is something that I'm holding for my ancestor. At the same time, I have to add here, and this is the important part, you're not randomly picked to hold that energy. You attract it. Again, the whole idea of energy field, what comes in, what stays out, is still relevant. And that is why when we talk about family karmic baggage, what we are talking about is unresolved energies, and which of the family member is in resonance with that quality of energy, they receive that energy. And then it starts to manifest through you. That's how you recognize it.
I was wondering if you don't have children or if you take a yogi path, can you do it yourself or do you need somebody to do this for you? Like, is it
I, anybody who belongs to your family system.
can do it? But what if they don't want to do it or they don't take the responsibility to do it? Or
So then that energy will stay alive until it finds until that's probably why we are doing the contemporary version of Shraddha, because for one reason or the other those energies missed receiving healing, so they stayed alive, and then it reaches one of us, and then we probably then look at our own resources on how we heal ourselves, and through that process. So obviously not everyone is conscious of this, not everyone is aware. In those days, assuming that people were more aware, these rituals were performed with complete mindfulness and understanding of why the need for these rituals. So nobody would probably pass on and say, no, I don't feel like.
yeah,
They would have understood. But
Yeah.
totally in today's time, I can relate to this, that I know it's nothing to do with me and why should I do it? Yeah, so then those unhealed parts stay alive. That is life. At the end of the day, we are never going to arrive at a perfect life.
yeah.
Traditionally, if there was nobody to do Shraddham for a person who has died, the king was permitted to do it.
This is Purvi. We are Jain actually. We are Hindus. So basically, in Jain, we are not supposed to do this rituals, Shraddha, Shraddh, and all. So basically, when we go to some problem has in the family or something, so we go to astrologer or somebody. So they say Pitru dosha. So this Pitru dosha is because of the ancestor has not healed. That's why. Okay. So in our generation, when we were small, they used to say, no, we don't believe in Shraddh and everything, anything. So what else we can do? Or we have to do Shraddh every year, or we can just pray? Or what the other alternative?
Yeah. So systemically, we have been given a process that we believe that when we do engage with this process, this kind of healing of the ancestors and honoring of the ancestors, we honor them. We honor that I am here today because those ancestors lived back then. So I start by acknowledging I'm here today because of you, because of your life experiences, and thousands and thousands of them. And therefore, I am the outcome, I'm the result of your journey. So first, we begin by honoring them for the challenges they have encountered, and so on and on. The second thing then is healing, which is what happens during Shraddha. So this is the systemic response to that question. What should I do? When they say Pitru Dosh, what should I do? This is the systemic response. Now, if this response does not appeal to you, then it becomes about what is your understanding of the flow of energy, and therefore how relevant do you feel it is to perform some kind of a healing process, to engage in some kind of a healing process, because while they tell you Pitru Dosh, and then at the same time you are told you should not address it, then where is the what is the way out of it, right? So if you don't relate to the conventional way, figure out a way. But living as though they are not relevant in your life today is a huge mistake.
Sometimes
Bec-
they suggest going to some temples and doing some offerings.
Yeah, no, that's what you have to find your way. You find your way if you think this is not going to
But
work.
every year we should do it.
I will not say you should do it, Purvi, because that's what we have been doing largely. We've been doing it because we should do it, but we have not engaged in the essence of that process. So that should do still brings me a whole bunch of clients for transgen, although their families have been doing it, but have not necessarily healed from it, or we don't know what it is. There are no shoulds in person.
If I do it, that's fine, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the question relates to me and maybe other people too. Does this go for, my mother was adopted, so does that mean my maternal, like ancestral bloodline, or does it also work for adoptive parents or whoever?
It works for both. Actually, your mother is doubly blessed, is what I would say.
Okay, all right.
Because
Thank you.
she has access to her biological lineage. It is her birthright. And she has access to the lineage that has nurtured her, cared for her, been her parents. So she has access to both lineages. It's energy at the end of the day. So let me put this one point across in conclusion. Energies flow. There are no walls in energies. Energies just flow. So if your mother has lived her life as the daughter of the family that has adopted her, the family energies will flow to her. There are no rules in the world of energies other than resonance, vibration, frequency.
Thank you so much, because I always thought ancestral as bloodline. I didn't.
No, they are. I believe that she is doubly blessed, and so are you. Therefore,
Well,
yes.
I don't know, but yeah.